Hey everybody, welcome back. This is Shane, and today's the 30th of June, 2021. I just wanted to go over a couple things. I went to the doctor recently, and it was a cardiologist. So I went to the heart doctor for some strange readings that I was getting. I recently bought an Apple Watch, which has some. It has a way of checking your pulse or your heartbeat. It also checks your blood oxygenation level. I don't know how accurate it is, but it does that as well. And if there's anything weird, it will do an ECG. Or there's a way for you to do an ECG to test or to get readings in your heart. So that's where I got some strange readings, and so out of concern. Just out of caution, I decided to go to the doctor to get it checked out. And it turns out that he was more concerned about my getting or being pre-diabetic, that my A1C was a bit high or something like that. And he was more concerned about that than the tachycardia. He seems to think that if I can resolve the weight thing first and get my pre-diabetes under control, then some of the other issues will resolve themselves, or at least I'd be in better shape to deal with them. So he recommended a high-fat, low-carb diet and potentially even intermittent fasting. So he recommended a couple of websites, one on the low-carb diet, and another one on, or not a website per se, but for, Dr. Jason Fung, who talks a lot about fasting. So I've got turned on to those two resources. So what I was doing wrong before is I have been actually losing weight. I've lost about 12 pounds, I think, more or less. I was at 208 when I started. Then I came back from vacation. Well, before I left, I was at 194. I came back, it was about 194. So I didn't gain or lose weight during the vacation, but I kept steady, or I stayed steady. Today, I'm 192 point something or other. So I've lost weight in the few days that I've been here since then. But I also transitioned after the doctor's visit on Monday. I went and got some coconut MCT oil for the coffee, and I forget what else. I bought some other stuff to work towards that diet. So I think what I was doing wrong was that it turns out that protein actually elevates your insulin a little bit. It's not as much as if you eat sugar or carbohydrates. So that will spike up your insulin. And protein does as well, because your liver turns protein into glucose. So what they call gluconeogenesis. And so the result from that is that it going on a protein diet doesn't completely eliminate the problem. It just kind of changes it to a lesser problem. But otherwise, it's still an issue with glucose. So the high fat, low carb, and it turns out low protein diet is preferable, because I guess it circumvents that whole problem of the spikes in glucose, either through carbs or through protein. So that's where I have been, and I think that's where I'm going to be using that from here on out, plus the intermittent fasting. So that's where I am at this point, is in order to resolve a problem with tachycardia, which I'm not convinced completely that is something that it was a problem to begin with. It was just for me. It was just me being cautious. But I've been reading and researching, and it turns out that potentially one of the problems that I had is that because when you have a low carb diet, or if you change your diet, a lot of times you eat a lot less sodium than you used to. And that can result in just being a bit dehydrated, because you need salt to retain water And so the dehydration may be contributing to the tachycardia, because when your blood volume goes down, then your heart has to work harder to pump more blood to get the whatever. Yeah, so the point is, it may have been either dehydration, or it could have been low magnesium, which comes from not eating vegetables, which is the green leafy vegetables, which if you're on the high protein diet, naturally you're going to eat fewer vegetables, but I think I just need to step that up. So my understanding after watching some videos and all that is that you're better off having a roughly what I forget the doctor's name. He's a doctor who focuses on longevity, and there's what he calls the fasting mimicking diet, FMD, which is about 60% vegetables, which gives you a certain amount of what he calls good carbohydrates, about 30% fat, and 10% protein, and that is just as good as just as good as fasting in terms of how your body responds. And so you do that a few times a year, and it resets your body's metabolism or whatever. In any case, that's where I'm headed, is to work towards that. And on days that I'm fasting, I may just do the high fat, just the MCT oil in my coffee, things like that. So now the goal for me is roughly about 140 pounds. I am currently 192, as I mentioned, and so that is, what is that? Almost 52 pounds. That's a lot. I mean, that's a sack of a large sack of potatoes, or a bag of concrete, that I'd be walking around with. So I think my knees would love that. I'm not suffering, I'm not in pain, but I can feel the weight as I move around. So yeah, that's where I'm headed. So in any case, I think that's just an update I wanted to do. I didn't want to sit down and type it out, so here I'm here today recording this. So I want to thank you for listening, and let me know if you've experienced trouble losing weight, and what you have done, what's worked for you. For me, what's been working so far, or what was working so far, was the high protein diet, or the Atkins, but I've kind of plateaued on that. It was at 193, 194, excuse me, and switching over to a keto, and maybe fasting. Perhaps that's what I need to kind of shake things up a little bit and continue my weight loss down. So those are what I'm considering right now. And so if you had any experience with that, I'd appreciate your recommendations, especially if you have any recipes. The part of the problem is learning how to cook for yourself, how to eat again, which is different from the standard diet, so the standard American diet. So any recommendations on what to eat and how to prepare food, I'd appreciate it. All right, thanks for listening. We'll talk to you again soon.